Where's my book?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January 17th, 2023 Town Council meeting. I'd like to start with Councilor Katsoukaris leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Please take notice of the fire exits in the rear and to my right. In case of emergency, please feel free to reach out to one of us, and please avoid using elevators. We'll start with a roll call. Councilor Cherichello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Councilor Spencer.
Good evening.
Councilor Katsoukaris.
Good evening.
Councilor Flood.
Good evening.
Councilor Weatherby.
Good evening.
Councilor Foote.
Good evening.
And good evening from the chair's seat. It's good to see everyone, another full house. I'll entertain a motion to open public forum.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Katsoukaris, seconded by Councilor Foote. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The meeting is yours. I'll just remind everyone to please pay attention to the lights and give your name and address for the record. And if you don't move soon, someone's going to close the meeting.
Mr. Chair, we do have several attendees online, and many of them are on by phone. We may want to remind them if they wish to raise their hand, they would press *9.
Beautiful. So, go ahead. Why don't you let them know?
Folks online who have dialed in by phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9 and unmute your phone or mute it again by dialing *6. Yep, and that worked. We have a hand raised online, Mr. Chair.
All right. Name and address for the record. Go ahead.
Yep, this is Steve Perfetting, 13 North Shore, business owner downtown Derry. So I just wanted to touch base on form government, being the town planning chairman was there on January 3rd talking about that, and some other things have come up. So basically, form type government, and again, I had mentioned these things before, but I will elaborate on what he also said. So basically, form government is, it allows the planning board to do an architectural review, and it's generally for larger sprawling areas, for downtown areas. We probably have 18 buildings on each side of downtown, and it's a very small area. And it would also apply to Crystal Ave. Where the problem comes in is in the form government, and what they did in the West Running Brook zone, it allows them to waive everything. Setbacks, anything in the zoning regulations that say shall and must, they can waive it. So it eliminates basically your zoning regulations, other than if people have to go to a different zone, they got to go in front of zoning and then meet the 5 criteria to do that. But if they come in and it allows something in that zone, planning board has 100%, they can just eliminate the zoning regulations, which is what they did on Rockingham Road. They waived shall and must. So that's one of the things they can do. Now, the planning chairman also disclosed 3 other things that the town council should know. One of them was that, first of all, they don't need to do a form type government. They can do it by special condition. That's what the planning chairman said that night. Also, he did say, and I noticed that didn't go over went over like a lead balloon with the town council. He did say consulting fees would be $180,000 to learn what I just told you and go through a process. So that was another issue that came up. So again, I know you got a lot of, there's going to be a lot of conversation about this form type government. The other thing that he mentioned also was, it's not readily around the whole country. It would be great for a Florida area, big areas, but there's only 3 towns, 3 to 4 towns is what he said in New Hampshire. There's a reason for that. So I would, again, I'm just here adding in what I had said before, what he said and what I said, and it's not the right type of government, and we really, I think we should get it out of the West Running Brook district so we get back to lower buildings with commercial going in first. They also waived that on Rockingham Road. You don't need the commercial anymore first. Just go ahead and build what you want. Build it by the time the project's done, then you can put the commercial, whatever it is. But so for those reasons. Now, as far as the town liaison, I mentioned 3 questions. Number 1, I asked the town council what a town liaison does. And number 2, I thought we should let people share the town liaison job. And number 3, and the big thing was, the planning chairman that night mentioned to during the vote, told the other people on the board that they could not consider taxes in the town of Derry. If it's going to raise our taxes, that's just the way it goes. It should be no part of the vote. But again, I was concerned with that being a taxpayer, and I just want to make sure that these issues are addressed. Now, you have plenty of time to do it, but I'm going to bring it up when I see it, and I said I would, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Anybody else online or in the audience?
We do have a hand raised online, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mark Flates.
Perfect. Go ahead, Mark. Name and address.
Sorry about that. Hey, I was just questioning. I mean, we're doing a lot of apartment buildings coming into the town.
Excuse me, Mark, just to be on the up and up, just give your name and address for the record if you don't mind.
I'm sorry, Mark Flatus, Linwood Drive.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm concerned with the amount of new apartment projects coming into Derry. With the school system looking at reducing or possibly reducing schools, and, you know, us building more apartments to bring more children into schools, has anybody done the math to make sure there's not going to be an impasse or a shortfall, and that we're able to, you know, balance this perfectly? That was all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Seeing no one else rise online, Mr. Chair.
Move to close.
Second.
Motion to close by Councilor Weatherby, seconded by Councilor Katsoukaris. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public forum is closed. That motion passes 7-0. Next up on the consent agenda, we have item 23-05, the approval of minutes from the January 3rd, 2023 meeting, 23-06, regarding resolution 2023-007 to accept a gift from the Derry Rail Trail Alliance. Regarding the acceptance of crossing beacons for installation with the intersection of the multi-use recreational path. The value exceeds $5,000, and because of that, a public hearing is required, which will be scheduled for February 7th. Lastly, we have agenda item consent agenda item 23-07 regarding resolution 2023-008 to accept a deed for the dedicated access upon lot 10115-23, Village Brook Lane, and to ratify resolution number 2022-066. And this will be the acceptance of a deed from Cooper Homes over the Class A trail, and a public hearing is required, and that will be scheduled also for February 7th.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilor Chercello, seconded by Councilor Weatherby. Any discussion? I'll take a roll call on this. Councilor Chercello?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. That motion passes 7-0. All right, moving right along. Under the chairman's reports, we have quite a few boards to present tonight, so we'll get started with the Building and Property Maintenance Committee. Here presenting is Chair Bob Wentworth. Good evening, Bob.
Councilors, how are you tonight?
We're good.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Okay. So, the beginning of the year, we started out, well, let me back up. When we started the Property Maintenance Committee in 2016, we had roughly 50 properties on the list. Currently, we're down to about 7. Now we're at the point that we drop one off, we pick another one up as they come in. So, it's going along fairly well. No big hiccups. Any questions?
No, we appreciate the information that you provided in our packets, along with your history. It gave a detailed version of, the thing I appreciated was the amount of attempts that your office and your committee takes to reach out to the people, to let them know what needs to be done before it gets to a point where action needs to be taken. So
I
you guys
feel
are,
only fair.
yeah, you're very fair, and as a leader in the community, represents the people, we appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Anything else?
We're good?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are they all going to be like that?
We can only hope. Something tells me no. All right. Thanks, Bob. Next up, we have our Derry Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Presenting tonight will be Chair Ernie St. Pierre. Welcome, Ernie.
Everything's good. We're all set, right?
Hey! Good job, Bernie.
Efficiency, that's what the people want.
Thanks for being here tonight. Yeah.
I know.
Appreciate it. Ernie St. Pierre, chairperson for the commissioners for the Derry Housing Redevelopment Authority. We had some great news at our facility where I think I told you before, we have 100 vouchers that HUD gives us. Well, HUD's got a big free hand of them and passing a lot of them out. We got 3 more vouchers, so now we're up to 103 vouchers. And that's the first time in a long time they've given any vouchers out, so that was a good thing. Things have been moving along pretty good. We still maintain the highest rating of accomplishment on how we handle our operation. Melody's done an excellent job for us. She does a fantastic job. When we've had Brian at a meeting, I think he's pretty well up to date and pleased with how things are going over there. We had a hiccup in our sale of Vintage Grace properties. That fell through, so now we're back on the drawing board trying to figure out what we're going to do with that property. That thing dragged on for 2 years, and we just had to put an end to it because it was just dragging on and on and on. But other than that, everything seems to be going pretty good. We've finished the project over on PBD Annex on the 3 buildings that we have. We did siding, windows, new appliances, cleaned up that area really good. Looks pretty good over there again. One thing I just want to bring to all of you counselors up here is that without that man's help right there, Dave, it really would make my job a heck of a tough job to do. He's an easy person to get a hold of, and he knows where to go and do things and get things done. So other than that, we're in pretty good shape for the shape we're in. Any questions?
Questions, comments?
Oh, good job.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ernie. Great job. All right, and next we have the Heritage Commission. Presenting tonight will be Chair Karen Blanford Anderson.
Good evening. So again, I'm Karen Blanford Anderson. I'm the chair of the Heritage Commission, and we're the ones that are going to take a long time tonight. So we do have.
You brought people, so it's okay.
It's okay. I brought extras. Yeah. So the Heritage Commission, for those online that aren't aware, our goal is to provide information and direction on the historical, education, and interests of the town. Right now, we only have one opening, an alternate opening, besides myself. On the commission is Paul Lindeman, TJ Cullinane, Mark Wiseman, Catherine Bauman, and Mike Hill is our newest one. And Mark Mastromarino, who isn't a member, but he still works with us quite a bit at the museum itself. Our primary goals right now are with the museum itself, and we hold our meetings on the first Monday every other month, so our next meeting is actually February 6th. One of the things, and we have some guests here tonight that are going to come up and speak a little bit about it, is over the past year and a half or so, we've built a program for junior historians. TJ Cullinane is kind of our Heritage Commission sponsor of this. It's a group of students from both Derry, Londonderry, Wyndham that are here, that are part of the group, and I thought it would be nice for you to hear directly from them. So for the members that are here, Calvin Plant, Luke Hansen, Angela Garcia, and Saskaya Clark, sorry, Saskaya, as well as Mia and I'm not going to butcher your name, Mia, sorry, are here tonight to represent, and the president, Calvin Plant, is going to say a few words about it.
Good. Hey, guys. Just if you wouldn't introduce yourselves each, so we know who's who.
Good evening. I am Calvin Plant. I am the president of the Junior Historians.
I'm Luke Hansen. I'm the vice president.
So first of all, we kind of wanted to start by saying thank you for funding us and supporting us throughout this past year, and we look forward to working with you guys for the next year. So in general, for this past year, we've done a lot of really great things. We started by doing Dairy Fest, where we were able to bring down some artifacts and really help teach a lot of the people, and we also got some people to come and get tours afterwards as they were very interested to learn more about Derry's history. We also increased our club size from 9 to 18 during that time because of recruitment. We also spent and did tours on Halloween, where we were giving out 1,500 pieces of candy to kids that were walking down the street. And then the memorial in McGregor Park, we have gotten all the names off the World War II veterans from that, and we are currently working on documenting the life stories of each and every one of them. We are 1/3 of the way done, and we hope to finish in 2023. We also came into possession of 250 letters written by the Daughters of the American Revolution, and we have curated those and have reached out to give those back to them after we have documented them all. So for 2023, we have a few different things planned, obviously finishing up with the World War II memorial, and we are also going to do a comprehensive cemetery cleanup. So we are already working with Pinkerton Academy's National Honor Society and are hoping to work with Pinkerton Academy Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps to have a day where we're going to go through and clean all the veterans' gravestones, re-level a lot of them, and the ones that didn't get finished, since we now have gotten a more comprehensive record of them, we're going to help finish them and carve out some more dates and stuff like that. And we're also going to have a theatrical presentation during the summer where we will put on a short 10-minute play of the story of Ocean-born Mary, where we would help to bring people in and get some more information, and they would also get a tour with living pieces of history that would kind of play the role and help immerse people in the experience.
Awesome.
Good job.
Cool. All right, any questions?
No, perfect.
Great job, guys. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Well articulated.
So as you can see, we're very excited about having a young group of people in town that are interested in the history of the town, are interested in the town itself, the cemetery, and of spreading the word out there. So we're very excited about that. In addition to the junior historians who are also opening and staffing the museum on Wednesday nights, we've been opening the museum on Saturdays. We've been doing pretty well on the days that there are activities downtown, so we're pretty excited about that. We have actually closed for the next 3 Saturdays, typically because of weather. The wintertime, we don't get that many people, and we are starting to get to work on some of the renovation projects that we have. So we're working on renovating the museum in groups. There's about 5 different sections, so we'll start with the first section, which is the indigenous people, the early settlers, and up to the Revolutionary War. So we'll take some parts of the museum down, and we'll start putting the new displays up as we go through it. We have over 3,000 artifacts. I didn't know if everybody knew that, in the town. Some of them are cataloged. We've been cataloging them. We've got them in a vault. We've got them in a storage room as well as a storage facility off-site. So there's a lot of artifacts that we have. We can't display them all. So we're working on ways to rotate them in through the museum as well. So that's one of the things. Some of the ongoing projects that we have, we're still working on a coloring book. We're hoping to finalize that soon. We're working with the Friends of the Forest Hill Cemetery, again, giving tours of the cemetery. If you've never been on a tour of the cemetery, it's something that's well worth taking a look at with the next one in the spring. There's a lot of history there, but there's a lot of information as well. We're going to be doing some things with the library. We typically partner with the library on speaking events. Some of our members will do certain presentations there as well. And then some of our members also sit on other groups, which is similar to like the Stagecoach and Robert Frost Byway Committee, which is a state committee, the Art Arts Council, and of course, we work with the Downtown Economic Development Group to make sure that we're coexisting with what they're doing with the downtown area as well. So, any questions?
Councilor Weatherby.
No, not a question. I think it's great getting the young kids involved.
Thanks.
You know, the next generation has to pay attention to this stuff, or this stuff will all get lost. So excellent job with everything that you're doing, but especially the young kids.
Great, thank you so much.
Good job.
Awesome, guys.
What did you say about the Robert Frost? Is that open now, or is it closed?
So the Robert Frost Museum is part of the state-owned. We don't take care of that at all. And right now, currently, it's closed for the winter.
Oh,
So,
okay.
But one of our members sits on the group that's called the Stagecoach and Robert Frost Byway Committees. I think you'll see the signs in town. They're state byways, historic byways that they work on. So because they run through Derry, George Soroy sits on it as well, and some of the other planning board or planning group, I think, are there too. But it's kind of a historic byway where there's information about it. So, yeah.
Good job, honey.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you so much. All right, and last, we have the Net Zero Task Force. Here presenting tonight is Chairman Jeff Moulton.
Good evening. So 2022 was a good year. We completed the RFP on the solar project for the landfill, went to contract in February, and the vendor is actively working towards completing that project at the end of this year, hopefully, the beginning of next year. But as you know, it's going to save the town a lot of money. It's going to fix our electricity prices at 6.9 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a really great inflation saver because it is fixed for 25 years. So we're anxious to get that in place. We're also still waiting. Mike Fowler is working on the final things for the Department of Energy for the $500,000 grant that we'll then use towards that solar project to then reduce the price for electricity even lower. But if electricity prices do kind of stay in the range that there are today, our initial estimate of $3.5 million in savings, it could go up quite dramatically. It could be in the $10 to $12 million range. So, because of the fixed price that we've negotiated, so it's an exciting contract, and we're anxious to get it underway. We've done a lot of publicity and helping residential and businesses. We've been working real hard with the schools to try to find a solution for solar for them. Gone through all their infrastructure plans and land, and we have not been able to find a solution yet, but we do have a new program we're going to try to get involved with them this month, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the electric vehicles and charging infrastructure, we've been very active with the state, with the PUC, to influence the rates there, and I think they've come out favorably, although they're only going to be around for about 2 or 3 years, and then Eversource has the chance to change them again. So hopefully they'll get on board to give us a competitive charging infrastructure for the state. We did benchmark a lot of the fleet in town, and it's very amenable to electric vehicles, with the exception of the police force, the cruisers that do the day-to-day 24/7 monitoring of our streets. They're probably not suitable for electric vehicles at this point because they need something to charge them in a very quick way. And so that would have to wait till we get some level 3 chargers in place. But there is a lot of potential for the rest of the fleet to convert. And we've been actually modeling some of the models ourselves. I own one of the Ford Lightning trucks, and we had a couple guys that have Teslas, so we've been looking at the performance of them, in particular in the wintertime, because there is a drop-off in their performance. So we're going to be presenting the results of that sometime probably in the spring to help us baseline the model a little bit more. And lastly, last year we've been monitoring the community choice program now. That's up to 20 towns that have joined this consortium. We're going to get an update here on the 24th of January on how well they're doing. They have not implemented yet, so we don't know if there's going to be any tangible savings to this program, but at this point we're staying neutral on this program until we make a recommendation to you folks about whether this is going to be beneficial to the town residents. So for next year, we want to see this year I should say, we want to see the successful completion of the solar project. We also just completed an application for IRA money for what they call the CMAQ program, where they will match 80%. Of the grant, they will provide 80% of the funding. And what we applied for was level 2 and level 3 charging infrastructure through the town, well, the municipal part of the town, and then some vehicles. So about 22 vehicles they would provide money for that would be used for any cost differentials to migrate from a conventional gas diesel car to an electric car or a hybrid car. So that application went in a little while ago, at the beginning of the month, I believe, and it was for about 1.5 million, and potentially our match would be about 300,000. A lot of that match from us could come from funds that we save and funds personnel that will be working on some of the installation of the projects. So I don't think our match would be too stringent on us. But we have to keep in mind, once we put these vehicles in place and the charging infrastructure, that maintenance costs will go down by 50%, and the fuel costs will go down by 2/3 to half. So this will pay for itself in 1 to 2 years once we get this program going. We are going to work on a program for the schools. There is a DOE program that has about $80 million in funds that we're applying for. And what they've identified is schools in a poverty zone. And looking through the RFP that they issued, we have 4 schools in town that qualify for that classification, which means we can apply not only for renewable energy projects for them, but we can also fund the rehabilitation of the schools themselves for insulation, new roofs, and things like that. So we're going to be targeting a couple of the schools in that area of the town to help them get money for funding for that. And we'll continue to monitor the community choice program and some lobbying around the state around some new net metering energy rates, as well as EVCS charging rates. But I think we're well on our way to achieving your goal of 2025 of being net zero, at least on the electricity side. And in conjunction with that, we're saving the town a lot of money. I think close to $900,000 this year, last year, maybe more because of the way the rates went up. But when the solar field kicks in, we'll be well over $1 million a year that you'll be saving in energy and fuel costs. So, any questions?
Do we still have out front in the municipal center the charging stations
The
for cars?
The ones out here in the parking lot?
Yes.
Yeah, they've been disconnected for a while because the Eversource rates that made them untenable. I mean, they were charged, it was equivalent to about 60 to 70 cents a kilowatt hour to charge off these.
Oh, really?
And so that'll be covered if we win the CMAC grant, that we would upgrade these chargers and then figure out a way to connect them into the building so we can kind of disguise the demand charges that causes the rates to be so expensive.
Do we have an idea as to how many cars in town actually use the charging stations?
Well, we didn't, see, when we put those 4 in, we didn't really have a way to monitor that.
Yeah, oh, okay.
We would have had to put in more intelligent ones, and since they were free from Tesla, we didn't get the more
Yeah, good.
elaborate ones.
Okay, thank you.
And then would you just not go into too much detail, but a little more detail about what's happening on January 24th and what that potentially... January 24th and what that might mean for residents? What's going on here and what that might mean for residents in town?
Yeah, so that's the community choice program. So they're going to come in here and kind of educate the public on what that program is all about. Josh and myself are going to be participating, talking a few minutes about what we've been doing in town, and you know, I think their goal is to try to get Derry to join this group of towns that's moving forward with this program. But just to refresh your memory, if we sign up for this, what we're doing is we're telling all town residents and businesses that we're switching you to a third-party carrier for your electricity supply. And you can opt out of it, but we would be taking on that burden to do that, and we wouldn't want to take that on unless we know for sure that there are going to be savings for the residents and businesses. So when they've formed this consortium or community choice group, the idea is that they collectively should be able to negotiate better supply prices. But they also are going to be adding overhead. They've added staff that's running probably over $1 million a year for lawyers and engineers and things like that. But it remains to be seen whether they can provide a better price than whatever Source does or some of the other third parties. But we're cautiously optimistic. We hope they do, and we can join at any time if it shows to be a good program.
All right, excellent, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Cool, thanks, Jeff. All right, next we have a presentation from our fire chief, Jim Richardson, presenting about AEDs in public facilities. How are you?
Evening, councilors are doing well. How about yourselves? Good. Okay, I'm just here tonight to just provide you guys with some information on some public access AEDs within town. So we have about 70 town-wide, that's both public and private. But out of those 70, 34 of them are the towns. They're located, accessible through, like there's 3 here in Town Hall. The school system, all the schools have AEDs in them available, fire stations, police stations, Adams Memorial Building, so on and so forth. Galleons Beach, Vets Hall. So that's how many we have accessible to us just on the town side of things, which 34 is it's a substantial number. But
all right.
You guys have any questions on specifics? Or?
I guess I do. Obviously, there was a freak accident with the Buffalo Bills football player at a sporting event, and you know, big credit is to the quickness of the first responder on scene, and then I believe the AED device was used. And a former school board member had been working on a committee recently, and they had brought that up about asking me if I would bring it to our attention if there was the potential to bring AED devices to some of the sporting events, not more the fields or the snack bar. I'm glad we have them at Galleons, but just finding or thinking outside the box. Are there any fields where we could increase the amount of AED devices? So I'm not looking for you to say yes or no, but like maybe we put that on our radar and see if it makes sense.
It's definitely something we can look into.
Yeah. Again, it took quick thinking but
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's CPR and defibrillation is what saves lives in a cardiac event, arrest event. So, and the quicker that happens, the odds of you surviving it goes up exponentially. So
I guess when time permits, maybe we identify, is there any locations where we could increase them, get a cost analysis, and maybe we circle back.
Absolutely.
Do the schools have them? Are they in the schools?
Yes.
They're in the schools?
Yes.
And they're in town hall. Where else are they located, roughly?
There's 3 in the municipal center, the Derry Court, the transfer station, Adams Memorial Building, Derry Public Library, Derry Police Department, the Fire Department. We have a bunch of them. The Upper Room, Marion Garish,
Wow.
Barker Elementary, Derry Village, East Derry Memorial, Grinnell, South Range, Hood, West Runningbrook, the Superintendent's Office, and Pinkerton Academy has 9. And actually the district warehouse too, the school district warehouse. Recreational properties, Alexander Carr, Don Ball Park, Galleons Beach, Vets Hall.
Oh.
So another thing with the AEDs, what you can do is, if you want to know where they are in town and how many we have, you can go to an app called Pulse Point. You can download that, it's free, and you become up and just sign into it, and it'll show you the locations of every AED in the town. And one of our guys, Brian Crotto, he actually took the time, drove around to everyone in town, took a picture and uploaded it to this app. So you can go to this app, you can see that there's an AED there. It'll show you the address, and it'll show you a picture of the AED within the building and the location, which is, if that's something you're interested in.
The AED, well, whatever they are, that's in the buildings. Do people know how to use them? I mean, if there was an emergency here and I saw the thing, are they trained to be able to use it?
So I recommend anybody to get training. We offer that training
When?
the fourth Thursday of every month. We provide basic first aid, CPR, some Narcan training, depending on,
Where?
type of Station 4 right now. Our
up
Station
on
4
East
station,
Derry?
yes. Yep, you can just call. There's a prompt that you can, after you call the 612 number, it'll send you to a connection to somebody that can help you
So
with
what
that.
time does it start and what time would it finish, so we'd get an idea of roughly?
I'm not sure what
Probably
time. It
start-
says somewhere at 6 o'clock at night. Usually
Okay.
they start.
No, that's fine. That's
So
fine.
with that said,
Oh, there was a couple people that called me and were interested in taking the course.
Absolutely.
And going, because they had small children.
yeah, absolutely.
And,
So,
Okay,
but to get back to the training, most AEDs now, or all the AEDs now that are accessible to
Yeah.
the general public, they're automated, and it talks to you. It's going to tell you that, you're going to press on, and it's going to say, check a pulse. And if there's no pulse, it's going to tell you to remove the pads. It's going to show you where to put the pads. It won't shock somebody unless it's a shockable
Yeah.
rhythm, so you can't accidentally shock somebody.
oh, okay.
But with a little training, it's going to be, even more effective, I believe, so.
Good. Maybe we should advertise when you have the trainings, because people are interested in taking.
It's on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And obviously do with this what you will, but I think it'd be great, because it only takes a few minutes to get to run through the device. If I remember correctly, I think it'd be great to do like a demonstration and put that out on social media as a way to like proactively send,
Yeah.
here's what happens. Because I do remember it being idiot-proof, but I also know under
Stress.
stress, it could be,
Right.
I'm sure it's
Absolutely.
pretty intense. So
That's a great idea.
if you, because I know you guys have a huge following and the police do as well, that'd be great. But thank you for your service.
Yep,
Thank you. Anything
thank
else?
you.
Thank you.
When you want me to the cable company, you can ask to have them put it on there.
Hey,
Yeah, Owen will work. Owen
Owen will
will do
do
a
it.
video with it.
oh, it'll take care
All
of it.
right, lastly, elections announcement. The supervisor of the checklist will be having a session on January 24th from 7 p.m. to 7:30.
Where?
I'm getting there, I think. For anyone who wishes to register to vote or make any changes to their voting registration, this will be the last opportunity. And if anyone wishes to run for office or participate in the school deliberative session, that is on February 4th, 2023. So the filing period for town and school offices is going to be Wednesday, January 25th through February 3rd. And to file for town office, please come to the municipal hall right here from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On any of those days. Per statute, the town clerk's office will be open till 5 p.m. on Friday, February 3rd. And then some of the openings, or all of the openings, are, we have 2 counselor positions. One is a counselor at large, which is a 3-year term. And we have a District 3 counselor position, which is also a 3-year term. Derry Public Library trustee for 3 years. There's 3 openings for 3-year terms. Taylor Public Library trustee, there's 2 3-year openings. There is 1 town clerk position, which is a 2-year term. 1 town moderator position, which is a 1-year term. And 1 trustee of the trust funds, which is a 3-year term. And lastly, I'll say, please visit the school website at sau10.org for more information on the school board positions and filing times for their offices. And with that, I will turn it over to our town manager, Dave Karen.
Okay, thank you. As the council's aware, we've had a relationship with the Upper Room for a number of years. They currently lease one of our buildings. They provide a lot of social services, including a lot of collaboration with our police department and our youth. So with us, excuse me, this evening is Brenda Gugelsberg, who's the executive director, and she wants to share some of the visioning they've been going through from their organization. Brenda?
Hey, Brenda.
Hi.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Gugelsberg from the Upper Room. Thanks for having us this evening.
Of course.
2 years ago, I sat before many of you to talk about our lease and was graciously extended that lease till 2041. Over the last couple of years, we have engaged in strategic planning. This is Ruth Kay. She is our development person, grant writer with the Upper Room.
Hey, Ruth.
Over the last couple of years, we've participated with Marion Garish and some of the other community organizations looking at space and how we are delivering services to our folks and to people in our community. Our most recent strategic plan allowed us to examine that again, and we want to make sure that we're able to deliver our services in a quality area. We are using some other spaces like the library. We also partner with the Y in Londonderry to do some of our services there. A grant came up about a month and a half ago that would allow us to explore looking at our current facility and potentially expanding. It's a CDBG grant. That is how our current building was expanded about 32 years ago. And so before moving into doing any of the work, I wanted to see if we had the town's blessing to even look at that space and examine if we could add on any of that. So that is my purpose for being here this evening. We'd like to expand. We really could use another classroom. We could definitely use a few more office spaces. Our food pantry has exploded, and we could use some more space for that. And we want to make sure that the space that we create is accessible to all So that would include restrooms and that kind of thing.
Excellent. So correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking for guidance or to expand, to go after a grant for expansion?
And before we do that, we wanted to make sure that that was within what the town felt was okay for that property. It is owned by the town, and before we move forward with even just a design plan, we didn't want to waste our time or energy doing that if that wasn't something we felt was
But
appropriate.
importantly, the town has to be a partner on the community development block grants. So we would submit it, you would submit it on our behalf. And that's the way it works. And that's why, more importantly, that we're here.
Questions, comments?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I mean, there's really, from our perspective, there's no downside to this. I mean, we're not necessarily committing to anything other than, you know, let's take a look if we can get some grant money. Obviously, the services you provide in town are invaluable to the town. And if we could expand on those, I think that's certainly well worth looking at. Obviously, you know, the devil is always in the details, and how it comes back would have to come back to us for approval in the end anyway, but I certainly would be fully supportive of you know, exploring whatever options might be out there.
What's important also is that what we're looking at is a planning grant. So, you know, architectural or site, whatever we would need to do before we would even consider having the opportunity to build. So right now, we're looking at a planning grant, not an implementation grant.
Met with Alan Cote the other day to look at our site, where our septic was, if it was even feasible to look at the property lines and expansion. It appears that that can happen based on the property lines and where everything is, but we just felt like it was important to be here before we make any further moves.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things is this is one of the main reasons why we advocated and the council approved the long-term lease of the upper room about 1.5 years ago, is to give them assurance that any investments they made in the building, they'd see their return on investment. And as Bren just said, she's been collaborating with Mike Fowler and Alan Cote to understand any constrictions to the lot and what the feasibility is. And as Ruth said, with a CDBG grant, a community has to apply for it. So we would be the applicant and they would be the sub-grantee. Similar to what we've done in the past with the Housing Authority and also some of the modular home parks over on 28 South.
So we're looking to stay in the same area, same footprint, just expand it. How does that impact the tavern, or does their parking take away from your space? Or am I in the wrong spot?
Wrong spot. This is over in Sneedle Road. Yep.
Yep, near the soccer field.
Near Ryder,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Great. Are we missing anything? Okay, perfect.
All right.
So I think it's a great idea. They're a big asset to the community, so
Yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer at this point.
I guess you should probably just get consensus from everyone, Josh. I mean, I don't think we need to.
Does anybody object to them looking into grants and planning grant and moving forward? Did you have a comment?
I just had a quick comment. Yeah, thank you. Do you know what, how much you're going to expand the square footage? Roughly?
I don't.
Okay. And you said Alan Cote looked at the septic?
Yeah, he looked where the septic, we are going to replace the septic over the next couple of years, but before we do that, we wanted to see that. So we have a Ryder home next door to us that we need to accommodate his space, and then the road. And then there's in the back of the building.
Okay. And so you mentioned you're going to replace the septic?
We are going to replace it.
Because it's the age?
Yeah.
The age of the system?
Yep.
And you have plenty of room to do that, leach field-wise?
Yep.
How much land is there? You know?
We abut the Ryder field. So
Okay.
that's the back of our property, and then there's a home next to ours.
Okay. Because they got to move the leach field to a new spot, so you can't use the same leach field area. You'd have to move it into a different location, but it sounds like you have plenty of space for that. And I have no objections as long as the zoning is worked out, you know, we're not encroaching anywhere, or as long as it follows that, I have no problem.
I guess the only other question, and I'm sure Mike and Alan have both looked at this as well, is I don't know how far sewer is from there, but I don't think it's too far, and I don't know if with what's going on Shenito Road, I don't know exactly what our etched in stone plans are as far as that. I don't know if we're going to try and run sewer down that, so that may also potentially be an option for you folks as well, which kind of eliminates the whole leach field issue altogether, which means potentially you have more space to build rather than put a leach field there.
Right.
So.
Awesome planning. Great job, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
thinking ahead and
job.
being proactive. Great.
The only other issue I want to approach with the council this evening is the status of our revenues. As you know, December 31st marked half the year, so our CFO is going to start working on the CIP, and then we're going to jump into budgets before long. So our motor vehicle fees, that's the fee people come in and purchase the vehicles, that is typically our largest non-property tax revenue, and we're still at 52% of the collections. However, the motor vehicle titles, which is a much smaller fee, however, it's you pay when you transfer a vehicle, that's at 48%. So we're seeing a little bit of lull there. So if you see a lull in that, that's usually indicative of lesser motor vehicle fees in subsequent years. So we may have to level set that revenue going into FY24. On the flip side, when we built the budget about a year ago, interest revenues were virtually non-existent, where they've come back some now. And so we're currently, as of November 30th, about 211% of estimate, and we suspect that we'll be receiving excess interest earnings by about $350,000 to $400,000 at year end. Civil forfeiture, we've had a number, although a majority of our citizens do register their dogs in accordance with state statute, a good handful do not, so our town clerks are working collaboratively with our animal control officer to take care of that backlog. So the revenues there are about 107% of budget. Planning fees are at 220% due to the number of development projects at the planning level. Building permits are about 64% as we enter the spring construction season. Construction material disposal, we're over 50% at 55. And the last one is mattress disposal. If you recall, Derry disposes of its waste in Massachusetts. So we have to follow their environmental laws, and they implemented strict laws with respect to mattress recycling. So the council approved a supplemental appropriation offset by fees and also some funds from the waste tire fund to pay for that cost. The expense at this point is only at 16%. It's not a full year, so we suspect we'll be making some adjustments to that budget in FY24. The good thing, though, it's a balancing act. The revenues take care of the expenditures, so if the revenues don't come in, we're not expending the funds at all. So, but by and large, we're in decent shape going forward. There's a couple areas we're looking at as we start to construct the FY24 budget in the coming months.
Great, thank you. Any questions for our town manager?
I have one quick question.
Go ahead.
You know what the CPI number is?
That should be out.
Did they report?
This week.
Oh, okay.
The Northeast CPI, which is the number we use per our town charter, is a couple days behind the national number. So we should be receiving it this week.
Okay.
Okay. All right, next, we'll get to a public hearing. We have 23-03, resolution number 2023-001, to apply for and accept grant funding related to household hazardous waste collection. Presenting tonight is Environmental Coordinator Craig Durrett.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Work time.
Yes.
Keep up the good work.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. Purpose of this resolution is to seek approval from Town Council to apply for and enter an agreement with DES in order to receive grant funds for FY24. That would be for our event held in May of 2024 for the next fiscal year. In order to do that, we need to, the Town Council need to vote to apply for the grant, to authorize, have an authorized representative approved to sign that, as well as to enter into the grant agreement. Each year, we hold a household hazardous waste collection event in May of each year. It is for residents of Derry and Londonderry. We cover the costs of that. On the flip side, there's an event held in Londonderry, which is sponsored and funded completely by Londonderry for residents of Derry and Londonderry. The grant that we're applying for is up to a $10,000 amount. It offsets our expenses. Each year, our expenses range anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000, depending on the amount of waste we receive and the number of participants. Any questions?
Move to open public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to open public hearing by Councillor Foote, seconded by Councillor Katsoukaris. Any discussion? Councillor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councillor Spencer? Councillor Katsoukaris? Councillor Flood? Yes. Councillor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councillor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Public forum is open. Nope, public hearing is open.
Public hearing. Yeah.
Move to close.
Seeing none, rise online, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion to close by Councillor Cherichello, seconded by Councillor Katsoukaris. Any discussion? On the motion, Councillor Cherichello? Yes. Councillor Spencer?
Yes.
Councillor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councillor Flood?
Yes.
Councillor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councillor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that motion passes. Public hearing is closed. Questions from the councils? Comments? You said it was $10,000?
It'd be up
And
to
that would
about
cover what we need?
$10,000. It's based on a per capita rate, based on our population as well as Londonderry's. And we usually don't know that number. The number varies each year, depending upon the number of applications they get.
Great. Would someone like to read the motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 2023-001 to apply for and accept grant funding related to household hazardous waste collections. Whereas Section 9.15 of the Town Charter authorizes Town Council to apply for, accept, and expend funds received from the state, and whereas the town annually has hosted a hazardous waste collection day to provide residents with a convenient and safe method by which to dispose of household hazardous waste. And whereas matching grant funding from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services is available to the town to help defray expenses associated with this program. Now therefore be it resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to sign grant applications and agreements with NHDS for up to $10,000 in matching funds, and further authorize the town to hold a household hazardous waste collection event in spring 2024. This resolution will take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Foote, seconded by Councillor Katsoukaris. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councillor Spencer?
Yes.
Councillor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councillor Flood?
Yes.
Councillor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councillor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Craig. All right, under new business. Agenda item 23-08 regarding item 2023-004 to authorize the town to apply, receive, and expend a grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services for milfoil treatment. Craig will be presenting that one as well. Go ahead.
Okay. This is actually kind of a two-part one. The first is to apply to DES for the grant where they will cover a grant to offset a cost of treating milfoil in specifically the Beaver Meadows area of Beaver Lake. The Beaver Lake Improvement Association has put in a lot of their own effort over the years at their own expense, certifying divers, getting spotters trained to remove invasive milfoil. Milfoil is, like I said, very invasive. It creates a lot of problems for the aquatic environment. It decreases sunlight, which it further affects the ecosystem. It is also, it creates havoc with boat motors because the plant itself is pretty sturdy. And in the process, when a boat motor hits it, it breaks up. Each of those pieces can further spread and form new plants. So specific training is required for the removal of that. Beaver Lake Improvement Association is also, they purchased their own scooters to speed up the removal in the lake. So they've removed quite a bit. And in this staff report, you can see there's quite a bit of, they go by gallons that they've actually removed. And over the years, it's continually increased. However, it's still spreading to some degrees in some areas. They've actually removed a lot more because they found areas that they didn't know before where it was. And we're offsetting some of the cost on that, as well as they're going to be contributing as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Does this have to be done on a yearly basis?
It really should be done on a yearly basis to get ahead of it, because it won't take long for the plants to further spread, and even if they break apart, then there's more.
How does the, is it milfoil, whatever it is,
Yes.
get into Beaver Lake? It's attached to a boat, or how does it get here?
Well, the biggest the main culprit they think is transport by boats. And so they have a lake watchers program where volunteers or even the state, maybe personnel, monitor boat ramps and try to educate the boaters as they come to put their boats in the water. They inspect the trailers and boats when they're going in, as well as out when they're taking them out of the water. And the goal is to educate and make people aware of the impacts of their recreational activities, specifically negative
It's
impacts.
usually boats that are outside of Derry, someplace else, and they come here and...
Correct, or they brought the boat elsewhere and then came back.
Okay.
And did it here, so it could be residents, could be non-residents. Any boat that goes in a lake has that potential.
Do we have much of it, or what's the story on it?
There's been quite a bit. I know that BLIA has done a lot of removal in some areas, and I haven't spoken to them in depth on this lately. I know that they feel they've gotten ahead of it in some areas, certainly, or as they dive the lake, they find other areas maybe they didn't find it before. The treatment involved in this is mainly for the Beaver Meadows area, which is down gradient of Pond Road Bridge.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have any? It sounds like we're losing.
Yeah.
Are we maintaining? Are we winning? Are we losing the battle with milfoil?
I question that too when I look at the maps. They say proposed areas, but when they actually get out there and inspect to do the treatment, initially the proposal called for all of Beaver Meadows. And it did last year too, but then they send out inspectors, the state went out to look for areas and they realized the area of treatment is much smaller than it needs to be.
Okay.
So the Meadows area really can't dive in. It's too shallow, tough with gear, going through the weeds and the marsh area. BLIA's made good progress on the lake itself, but certainly it's everyone's job to be on top of it and be aware.
Okay.
Just one further question.
Yeah.
Is there anybody on site that when these boats come in, there's somebody that checks them? Is anybody allowed to use it? I mean, if somebody from Manchester wants to bring their boat, they can. Is anybody checking to see if there's milfoil on there? Or I don't understand really the process of it.
Well, the boat ramp, I believe, is state-owned and run.
Yep, it is.
And so the Lake Watchers program is a state program.
Yep.
So they have volunteers as well as I think staff that actually they get assigned to different boat ramps. Are they staffed the full time? I can't answer that every day. So I really don't know. I don't know that I don't know the extent that they're there. I know they have the program to try and educate people.
But isn't it possible that like a land, Neil owns a boat, he goes to Winnipesaukee, brings back milfoil. Couldn't he put his boat in other places off his land, or are all boats going in at the ramp on Beaver Lake, the same ramp?
A lot of the boats go in, but yeah, I mean, people can put in their private boats in their own space and things like that. But again, I think the people that live on the lake, and kudos to BLIA, they've done a really good job of educating and again recruiting volunteers, training divers, and they do a really good job on the lake itself. Again, this treatment is for basically south of Pond Road, where you can't dive. It's just, it's this deep.
Yeah.
So really the treatment is the only thing that you can do over there.
Yeah.
But again, the people that live on the lake are very much aware of, and the reality is it impacts your property. If Beaver Lake is overtaken by milfoil, you're going to have, houses that are assessed over $1 million that are going to be worth half that.
Wow. Oh.
All right.
Which is obviously an economic impact to the town besides environmental impact.
All right. Someone like to read the motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2023-001, 2023-004, excuse me, to authorize the town to apply, receive, and expend a grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services for milfoil treatment. Whereas Section 5.1 of the town charter designates the town council as the governing and legislative body of the town, and whereas Section 9.15 of the town charter authorizes the town council to accept grant funding, and whereas milfoil is an invasive aquatic weed that has been introduced to Beaver Lake, and whereas left untreated, milfoil will continue to grow, damaging the lake and potentially negatively impacting property values, and whereas it is in the best interest of the Beaver Lake Improvement Association and the town to eradicate milfoil from Beaver Lake, now therefore be it resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to apply for, accept, and expend up to $8,215 in grant funding from the Department of Environmental Services, and to execute all necessary documents to provide milfoil treatment on Beaver Lake. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Weatherby, second by Councilor Foote. Any discussion? Councilor Jerichello?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Next resolution, next motion, next agenda item deals with the same issues. Beaver Lake Improvement Association milfoil treatment. We still have Craig presenting. Go ahead, Craig.
Okay, the next resolution is to accept $3,000 from the BLIA, Beaver Lake Improvement Association, to help offset the costs. This would be their share towards the contribution.
Questions on that? Pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, good, Joe, sorry. Just a comment, again, the BLI puts its money where its mouth is. I mean, it's a private organization. They get dues memberships from, people that want to be involved. And they put that money directly back into the lake and maintaining the lake in, as good a condition as possible.
On topic but different subject. What about Big Island Pond? We have the same issues there, like, well, there? So we're going to be doing this for?
No, actually, I believe that they've maybe had some milfoil there. It's nothing like what we've seen here. I'm not as familiar with their situation. I'm only familiar with in terms of one of their newsletters last year discussed not accepting a grant for it because they realized they kind of have somewhat under control and they wanted to delay until they get a better handle on what's out there. And I believe there's also another invasive species called spiny naiad. I'm not as familiar with that one too, that they're dealing with.
I was just curious if we're going to be expecting something else down the road from that side of it.
And I think one difference is I don't believe there's a state public boat ramp on Big Island Pond. I know there is some type of boat ramp, but I think it's kind of privately run. So that helps keep things out because, anybody can't just pull in with a boat.
Very good.
Dumb question on my part. Could like a camera at the boat ramp, see milfoil? Is it visible like that or no?
Probably not.
On a boat?
I think it could be anywhere, maybe wrapped around a prop, between the boat and the trailer, or hooked on a trailer. It doesn't take much because the way milfoil grows, it almost grows in these nodes and each node could break off and create a new plant.
So cameras at a boat ramp wouldn't?
Probably wouldn't. I don't believe that would pick up that. It has to be a on-site visual inspection.
Got it.
To really see it.
As Craig kind of alluded to, really like a speck this big, the fishing boats, people that go out bass fishing or whatever, if you've got a live well in the boat that's circulating lake water, you can pick it up that way. It can get into your live well, and then when you run it in another lake, you're basically spitting it back out again.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a potential source.
All right.
What does it
Neil?
look like?
I will move to adopt resolution number 2023-005 to authorize the town to receive and expend a grant from the Beaver Lake Improvement Association for milfoil treatment. Whereas Section 5.1 of the town charter designates the town council as the governing and legislative body of the town, and whereas Section 9.15 of the town charter authorizes the town council to accept grant funding, and whereas milfoil is an invasive aquatic weed that has been introduced into Beaver Lake, and whereas left untreated, milfoil will continue to grow, damaging the lake and potentially negatively impacting property values, and whereas it is in the best interest of the Beaver Lake Improvement Association and the town to eradicate milfoil from Beaver Lake, now therefore be it resolved, excuse me, in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to accept and expend up to $3,000 from the Beaver Lake Improvements Association to provide for milfoil treatment in Beaver Lake, and this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
Motion made by Council Weatherby, seconded by Council Katsoukaris. Any more discussion?
Just one comment, thank you very much to Stephen Anthony, the president of the BLIA, and all the volunteers that do all the great work to keep that lake as clean as they've kept it over the years.
Good point. Agreed. Any other comments? Councilor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 7-0. Good seeing you, Craig. Thank you so much for the presentation.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, next, Town Administrator Dave Karen will be presenting regarding amendments to the non-represented personnel policy.
Hey, thank you. Now, currently, the town has really 3 classifications of full-time employees. Most of our employees are represented by a collective bargaining agreement through a union, and we negotiate with these folks every 3 to 5 years. And during that time, we have an opportunity to adjust positions to different labor grades if we find out that the market anchor is not there and needs to be adjusted as well. We go through the same process with our non-represented employees, primarily our department heads. There's about 10 positions that are non-represented, but we go through the same process every 3 years or so to make sure that we're competitive with the market and that the wages and salaries and benefits are competitive both with on an internal basis with our labor unions and externally with other employers. The third group we have is actually a single group, is we have one elected official, which is a full-time position. And that position has never been managed in a way in which we can assure that the position internally is comparable to those positions in our organization which have similar type responsibilities or level of responsibilities, and also externally. So, and this is very timely because the town clerk is the only full-time elected position. And, it's always been our recommendation as you consider amending those labor grades during an election year before the filing period, so then any citizen who may be interested in those positions are aware of the compensation is going to be. Now, currently the compensation for the town clerk is in the $48,000 range, and typically for both our represented and non-represented employees, we usually look to the same 10 communities we compare ourselves against. So we went through that process here. We eliminated 4 of those positions because 4 of those communities had a combined clerk-collector position, which has more responsibilities and obviously should be compensated at a greater level. So once we look at those 6 positions, we came down that the range actually should be, right now there's not a range, but the range should be somewhere in the area of labor grade D in our non-rep plan, which is 59,134 to 80,122. So for administrative efficiencies, it made sense to recommend to the council that you wrap the town clerk's position into the non-representative plan. Now, there's a number of sections in the non-rep plan which would not be applicable to the town clerk as an elected position. There would not be a performance evaluation. That's done by the voters every 3 years. As far as vacation and holidays, vacations and sick leave, we don't establish any town clerk's schedule. They do that themselves, and they're answerable to the voters. So what we're recommending is that, number one, we include the town clerk into the non-rep plan. to identify the range of the compensation and also to identify the benefits which are accrued to that position. Now, recognizing the significant jump between the current compensation and what we think makes sense, both compared against the exterior market and also compared against like positions here within the organization, we would recommend a 2-year implementation program. And one is that the salary would be set on July 1st of 2023 at $53,500, and then in July 1 of 2024, which is FY25, it will be brought inside the range, and right now the minimum for that range is $51,134. So that's staff recommendation. Again, we think it's timely because the filing period starts next week, and so citizens ought to know what the compensation is for elected positions that are up for election in that particular year.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When was the range that we're currently in, when was that established? Has that moved at all?
The last time we adjusted the non-rep ranges, I believe, was 3 years ago.
Okay, my question would be specifically for the town clerk.
There never was a range. That's the challenge we're trying to address.
When's the last time in the budget it went up or down, or how long has it been 48,000?
It's been an increase of 2% for the last 3 years, last 2 years, and about 3% prior to that.
So it does, I'd like to continue, it fluctuates yearly.
Yeah, it comes before the council for adoption of a resolution to establish that salary on an annual basis.
Okay, and then what's the percentage that you're proposing from the 48 to the 53?
That percentage would be, actually, what's an increase of about $5,300, so probably the increase is probably about 11%.
And one more question. What was the CPI number for last year?
Last year was 5.9.
5.9. So it's almost double. You're proposing almost double what would be normally allowed under a tax cap.
Well, that's correct. And also for the council's information is that this does not happen frequently, but happens on occasion during negotiations with our employee representatives, where they come back and say this particular position is currently out of market, so they jump per labor grades. One thing else that I would bring to the council's attention is that under the non-rep plan, we have a minimum and a maximum. We don't have steps, whereby the representative employees have steps, and those range anywhere from, in addition to the COLA, of anywhere between 3 to 5% between steps.
Where are we currently on which, so the steps are min and there's no there's no midpoint? That's min?
Correct. It's min and max.
Min and max.
That's right.
And where is it currently?
This position?
Yeah, where does it sit on that scale?
It doesn't sit on the scale. It's about $10,000 underneath that scale.
Okay. And anyone else have any questions?
I do, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm trying to.
No, just
Go ahead.
not a real question. Just, I think for anybody who sat up here for any length of time, I think we've seen, particularly in the last, 3-4 years, how the demands of this job have dramatically changed. And, I understand it's a pretty significant increase from where it is now, but quite frankly, the demands on the job are more than I think the increase is, to tell you the truth. That's my humble opinion. But again, I've just, and not to disparage anybody who's done this job in the past, but quite frankly, this job 5-10 years ago used to be a hell of a lot easier.
My big question or concern when this first came up, I want to make sure we're comparing, because my mom's a town clerk up in Vermont, and I want to make sure we're comparing duties, because I know from talking with her that it can really vary from town to town, the amount of responsibility. You could be all on your own and doing everything. You could be in a large office with lots of help. I'm not saying one's easier than the other, but they're different. And I appreciate you getting the different communities involved and eliminating 4 Who were the 6 that were left that we compared against?
Sure. We compared against Concord, Keene, Portsmouth, Rochester, Londonderry, Bedford, and of course Derry. The 4 communities we eliminated because they have that combined position. So essentially it's the tax collector and the town clerk being responsible for both those operations.
Right.
So we eliminated Salem, Dover, Merrimack, and Hudson.
And so
Collectively, those are the 10 communities which we have standardized, we compare all our positions against.
Right, and that was I guess that's my concern. I didn't want to just, because this is a unique position, I just didn't want to like throw it in like we always do, for lack of better words. But Concord, Keene, Portsmouth, Londonderry, Bedford, that is more of an apples to apples comparison per the duties of our town clerk.
Yeah, what we do, we've done this at least since I've been here in 2016, is we take the 10 largest communities minus Manchester and Nashua, because just virtue of their size, they're just different animals than we are. So essentially we take, and by population, communities 3 through 12. And so Derry in that group is the second largest community in that subset.
Right, I guess back to my point, I just want to make sure the duties, like we've looked into the duties of each of those other communities, specifically the town clerk in their office, clerk's budget versus total office's budget, clerk's duties versus office's duties, and we're comfortable that these are comparable. They're as close to apples as we can get.
Yeah, what we went through is to see if all of them registered dogs, manage elections, collect the taxes, vital records, marriage license, motor vehicles, which was the big disqualifier for 4 of those communities, whether they attend council meetings or select board meetings, and whether they're responsible for minutes of those meetings. Those are just
Thank you, and I know the last thing I'll bring up is you mentioned benefits. The 2 reasons we wanted to get kind of the position into the non-represented personnel policy was to get them into the range, the pay range, but also to achieve the benefits. I forget the language you used, but what are those benefits?
The same benefits as non-rep, which the clerk currently receives, but I want to make sure that anybody who's interested in the position has an expectation what those benefits would be. Right now, they're not anywhere. So when you wrap this position into the non-rep plan, then they have an understanding what the benefits are attached to this position. There are no new benefits with the passage of this recommendations. There are no new benefits accruing to the clerk. It's just formalizing what the person currently receives.
Okay, so it's not like 3 weeks off or 5 weeks off, because I know the town clerk can take time off or not, and the voters decide whether they like the job he or she is doing.
That's correct.
And then last point or question, I know in the past, we've tried to align this position's percent increase, raise per year with the other employees, so it's equitable. Obviously, Brian brings up 11%. There's no expectation. This is an anomaly if we do this, and
I anticipate we'll return to that once you bring the position into the market range.
Okay. Great. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyone else want to have a question before I speak for the second time? No. Out of the groups the towns that we looked at, how many are appointed and how many are elected?
I know that Londonderry, Bedford, and Derry are elected. I'm not sure about Concord, Keene, Portsmouth, and Rochester. Cities have an opportunity to appoint their clerks. They have that opportunity. We don't have that at the town level.
Okay.
We should, but we don't.
Yeah. And then taking personalities out of it, obviously. I've seen many town clerks, and they have different approaches. So some do a lot of work, and some don't do as much work. So who oversees town clerk of what they do? It's an elected position, so they can do whatever they want, right?
It's up to the voters.
But how do the voters see? How do they know? But I mean, by going to the town clerk and
But usually through customer service or lack thereof.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I'm just going to say for me, I don't mind boosting this up a little bit. I would go to the CPI, which was 6%. 11's a little bit rich for me. But that's my opinion.
How about, I guess I agree, but I'm also comfortable in what's being presented because it's been so out of whack for so long. So
Am I understanding correctly, if we don't match it, at some point they're going to be negotiating, and then we're going to have to correct it in a bigger jump all at once?
Who's negotiating?
Didn't he say?
Well, this position is not a negotiated position. This is a non-representative
You
position.
run for election. It is what it is.
I missed that. Never mind.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, kind of hinting on what you were saying, Josh, I mean, I trust, Dave's judgment on this. He's done the homework, he's done the research. I haven't. I don't think any of us have. So I'll go with Dave's word. And again, just seeing what I've, seeing what I've seen in, quite frankly, how much more of a headache this job has become in the past several years, I think it's money well spent.
And I do agree with Council Chiricello. It's a big jump, but town administrator does the budget. He's the one that's responsible for the budget every year, and he knows the thing. So I think based on his recommendation, if he's done his homework on this, and normally I'd be a little uncomfortable with it, but due to the apples to apples comparison and trying to get us in the range, and this way when people, before the election, people will know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
And it's a fair across the board. So I'd be comfortable with it based on that. Because again, a couple months from now, he's going to be coming back with the budget, and he's the one that has to find the differences.
Yeah.
Just a comment on Councilor Foot's comments. Remember, it's the council that's really responsible for the budget. You can make a recommendation. We have the final say.
We have to approve it.
Right. No, I get that.
Yeah.
But he's the one that crunches the numbers. We approve it, but he's the one who's moving stuff around, moving all the Legos around.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I see it a little bit different than an employee type thing, where you're trying to fill an employee type situation because they can bounce around from town to town. This is an elected position. People know what it is ahead of time. If you don't want to run, you don't run. If you want to run, you run. And it is what it is. So, I think Councilor Borden kind of hit it on the head. How does that, how do you treat all your people that are out there now? Police, fire, they didn't get that kind of a raise, 11%. So we're treating people unequitably, in my opinion. I think the 6% is more than fair because we had the CPI. But anyway, that's my opinion.
What are you going to do with this? You're going to support it?
Mr. Chair, may I just make comment before we go on? So I understand where Councilor Chiricello is coming from as well, and I think I just see it slightly differently as well, in that we're not giving 11% because we just decided this, as much as Councilor Weatherby is correct, this position is more of a headache. To me, it has nothing to do with that headache. It's the fact that currently the inequity is in what we're paying for this position. Mm-hmm. This position hasn't kept up with the prices of, we haven't looked at what that position is and what that pay structure has been as closely, maybe because it isn't in any, it's not in a represented place or a represented bucket. And so, our police and fire, we look at that and we would have already had those discussions of keeping it in the market value, so to speak, or the word's escaping me, I'm trying to use right now. So I agree it's a big jump as well, but to me, this is fixing a deficit to bring it up to where it should be, not that we're taking it from where it is and giving it a big jump. And the truth is, yes, if you want to run, you run knowing what you're getting into and that this is what we're going to, what you're going to get compensated and the taxpayers are going to give you. However, you may lose people that are not not able, that may do a great job, but again, it's not, it's not worth it to do it for what's being offered, or maybe they aren't going to end up spending as much time as they otherwise would have at the job if they were getting compensated at a rate that made sense for them to be there more often.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2023-006 to approve periodic amendments to non-represented personnel policy. Excuse me. Whereas section 5.1 of the town charter designates the town council as the governing and legislative body of the town, and as such is empowered to enact policies, and whereas the town administrator pursuant to Section 8.6 of the town charter has proposed the town amend its non-represented employees personnel policy. Now therefore be it resolved in council that the amendments to the non-represented employees personnel policy are hereby approved. This resolution shall take effect on July 1st, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Weatherby, seconded by Councilor Katsoukaris. More comments and discussion. Go ahead.
I was gonna, are we voting or discussion?
Any more discussion?
So we just did the math, and the math for a 6% increase would be, bring it to $51,400 versus the $53,500. It's a $2,100 difference. It's not a lot of money. It's pretty close. So, I still feel that keeping it under the current CPI is the way to go, and I'm going to stick with that. So if there's no other discussion, I can vote if you want.
All right, we'll move the question. Councilor Cherichello?
Yeah, I'm going to vote. So on the original motion, I'm going to vote no. I would be willing to go the 6%, which I think ties into the CPI. 11 is a little bit much. So I'll do 6, but I won't do 11.
I vote.
Councilor Spencer on the motion?
Yes.
Yes, on the motion.
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, and I want people to know that I aggressively emailed our town administrator laying out that I was very concerned with the fact that it needed to be apples to apples. No doubt he was also concerned and promised and would have done the research on his own, and he did the research, and that is why we have the comparison. And I agree with Councilor Cherichello that 6% sounds nice, and based on a percent alone, that is fair, but the problem is that 51,000 number would still be inequitable to those other communities, and all we're doing is playing catch up here to attain or retain quality people. So
Yep.
I vote yes, that motion passes 6-1.
Yep.
Next, we have agenda item 23-11 regarding resolution 2023-009 to accept an ARPA grant for water quality improvements. Presenting as Town Administrator Dave Karen.
Thank you. This is really a housekeeping item. When the council approved Resolution 2278, that was the $6.11 million water improvement program. Part of that was to accept $1.22 million in grants, and the actual grant number came in $2,000 higher, 1.222. So for every grant dollar we received, that's one less dollar we have to borrow for the project. So we recommend that you enact resolution number 2023-009, which will bring in $2,000 more in ARPA funds from NHDES for this project.
Motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt resolution number 2023-009 to accept an ARPA grant for water quality improvements, whereas section 9.15 of the town charter authorizes the town council to accept grant funding, and whereas the town council previously adopted resolution number 2022-078, which appropriated $6,110,000 for water improvements, and further authorized acceptance of $1,220,000 in ARPA funds from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to be applied against this appropriation. And whereas NHDES notified the town that the ARPA grant will total $1,222,000. Now therefore be it resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to apply, accept, and expend up to an additional $2,000 in ARPA funds from New Hampshire DES to be applied against the appropriation under Resolution 2022-078. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Weatherby, seconded by Councilor Katsoukaris. Discussion? I just have one question. This is COVID money still?
Yes.
Do we know, I know, so we need to accept the money or somebody else will. But do we know when this is going to dry up? Because it just seems like it's never ending.
Well, these are the funds which were obligated or appropriated at the federal level about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So we have until the end of calendar year 24 to obligate it, and the end of calendar year 25 to expend it. So it's the same pot of money.
Good.
It's just being rolled out at a slower pace.
Okay, good. It's not, they're not continuing.
Not new money printed off.
All right, on the motion, Councilor Chercello.
Yes.
Councilor Spencer.
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris. Councilor Flood.
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby.
Yes.
Councilor Foote.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 7-0. Agenda item 23-12, resolution 2023-010, to accept a gift from the South Central Public Health Network. Presenting is Chief George Fioli and a guest.
And a guest, yes. Captain David Michaud.
Yes, how are you?
First official appearance before the council as captain.
We have props too.
We do. It's a little bit of show and tell, actually. We were approached recently by the South Central Public Health Network with a donation of 25 Narcan outreach bags and what's called an nalox box. That's a new concept to me. But basically, it's like an AED that you see behind us on the wall, and it's a opioid rescue kit. I initially thought that, you can hold that up, Dave. I initially thought that we were going to get many of these nalox boxes, but we only got one initially. Have no fear, we have a plan. First of all, go to the rescue kit, the outreach bag. That contains 2 4-milligram doses of naloxone, or Narcan. It contains a breathing rescue mask, like you'd normally see used in a rescue breathing situation, along with some educational material for folks who may need it. The goal with those bags is, and by the way, I want to thank the fire chief for staying. This is a joint project. I wrote this the staff report on behalf of both the police department and the fire department, and he's agreed to stay in case there are any questions that were asked that I couldn't answer. He maybe can answer them. So thank you, Chief, for staying. Folks that we run across in the normal course of our duties for overdose calls, we could pass along these outreach bags to them or family members so that they may have them at their home as needed. The concept with the box is that they would, seems logical to me, to place one of those boxes at every location where we have a publicly available AED in the community. Since we couldn't get more than one right now, I asked town administrator if we could use opioid settlement funds to fund the additional purchase of those. That is a possibility, but we don't have a clear understanding of those funds yet. As we get clarity, we can explore that further. Those cost about $350 a box. There is an alternative that we've just begun discussions with the fire department, and that is that it wouldn't be too much of a reach to place Narcan in every single one of the boxes that you see behind us on the wall, and we could simply rebrand or relabel those kits as AEDs/opioid rescue kit and label it as such, so we could put a Narcan stock in each one of those boxes that are available. Now that would require discussion with the people that have these boxes, the AEDs in their facilities, schools, Pinkerton Academy, public facilities, wherever they may be. But that's certainly something that we're willing to pursue and talk about further if needed. So basically, what we look for tonight is acceptance of the one in the locks box that we have, value $350, and the 25 outreach kits that we'll split evenly as we can, 12 and 13, between the police and fire, so that we would have them to pass out to folks as we respond across the community.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Do people have to be trained on how to use this, or, you know?
There are instructions in the kit, and it's pretty simple. Phyllis, if you take out the Narcan and you hold it in hand, it looks like a plunger, and you stick it in someone's nostril and press the button. And it's as simple as that. And it delivers a 4 milligram dose of naloxone.
So
Pretty
they
simple.
don't have to be taught, it's just so...
It's pretty intuitive.
Okay. Well, that's cool. And how many of those are going to be around?
Well, one for now, and we hope to place it in this facility, in this building.
The yellow kits.
The yellow kits, we have 25 of those initially.
And where are they going?
12 of them at the police department or so, 13, and the other balance to the fire department. They would have on their medic crews. So that they would also do the community outreach as we will when we come across these types of incidents in the community.
Will they be exposed so that people realize that they're there and they can grab them if they
We're
need?
going to hand them out to people that we come into contact with.
What
So
about
that would
the
be a
churches?
proactive
None of the
measure on our part.
churches are going to get them?
I'm sorry?
What about the churches? Are they going to get any?
Long-term plan, if churches have an AED in their facility,
Yeah.
a defibrillator, it seems logical that we would place an opioid rescue kit in that device so that it'd be publicly available in the same place.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we all know that Narcan was really important
Yeah.
in the fact that it prevented people from overdosing and dying. That's a fact.
That's true.
Have you heard that they're now mixing animal sedatives with fentanyl, where Narcan does not respond to this?
That's true. It's called xylazine, and it's an animal tranquilizer, large animal practices. It's not for your dogs and cats.
Right.
As I understand it, it's for large animals, and that is now being adulterated into fentanyl products.
Right. So here's what I'm thinking. I don't know what the answer is. These boxes are made for the public to use. If I walk down the street, I see somebody who I think is overdosing, I'm able to go into that box and use the Narcan, correct?
Yes.
What kind of liability can I get into if that person
Training.
passes away?
I don't think, well...
And I don't know the results that...
No other liability than we assume when we do it, and we do it a lot.
So there's no liability to the public to administer Narcan to anybody that passes away?
Good Samaritan law.
I don't believe so.
Right. It's a concern I have, that's all.
Other concerns or comments?
Just a housekeeping question. So if we get these and you just dispense them around town like you want to with the AEDs, I guess who's going to be in charge of the oversight of them as far as because they expire, they're not getting used, going to be expired?
Well, that would have to be the responsibility of the custodian of the facility. Whoever is in charge of the facility where it is would have to make sure, just like you have to make sure the AED batteries are up to speed and working.
So I know the manufacturer will do the AED checkups, annually, whatnot, but I just want to make sure that the housekeeping has an
internal
oversight.
procedures for whoever has the kit that would have to be instituted so that they monitor the product.
What about supermarkets where hundreds of people are in there on a weekend shopping? Could they ask for one of these, or could they be there, or?
Certainly, just as they could have an automatic defibrillator in their facility, in their store, they could have these kits publicly
Now,
available.
how do they get the kits?
All they gotta do is ask.
I mean, they call you, the police department?
We'll put them in touch with the right people to get it.
Okay, cool.
So I like that we're thinking outside the box. I think, so is only Narcan's in the box? What's in the box? The $350 box.
There is a breathing mask, a rescue mask, some instructions, and then, take it right up, and the Narcan itself. There's no Narcan in that box. That box is presently empty, but it would be stocked with
How much
Narcan.
is it for that box?
$350 total.
It feels like it's a nice deal for whoever's making that box. You know, the government's paying for it, and
sounds like it.
No one's
pretty cool.
You know, it's other people's money, so there you go. I like the idea of thinking outside that box and putting them in AED devices. And I'm all for putting Narcan out to everyone. We had it when we have it in our car just in case people think, oh, well, my family doesn't use it. Doesn't matter. You never know. But my what if people are just going into the box to have it on them just in case? Users or family members or friends of users, I see it, I go in and I get it. Not for the intent, not for the emergency, but for the...
Well, these boxes have a seal. The boxes behind us, some of them, not all, are tied right into the fire department. So when that door opens, an alarm is sent to the fire department. I know they're like that in our schools and Pinkerton Academy. Correct me if I misspeak, Chief. So if those boxes are opened, there's an immediate response by first responders.
Okay.
Good.
And that's a good model.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I was going to say, and I'll turn it over, I would just encourage, we're probably already doing this, but to take a look at like where most of the incidents are. Because I'm thinking hotels, not that we have any in Derry, but motels are going to be where a lot of incidents happen. Grocery stores in their cars, stuff like that. So just we have the data where are most overdoses occurring and try and getting them there versus in the AED. I see why we went with the AED. That makes sense.
Well,
but
and that's for publicly available, so anybody from the public can access it. Just to refresh everybody, every one of our police officers working the street have an AED kit in their car, and they have Narcan in the car. So when they get out of the car and they respond to a call and they carry that kit, they carry both the AED and Narcan kits with them at all times.
Cool. But I don't like the box. I like not for that price.
So if, say Shaw's wanted one of those in their store or Walmart wanted one, they would call the police station and purchase it and put it in there?
Well, no, they wouldn't purchase it, but we'd put them in touch with the folks that they can get it from.
Cool.
They should be around.
I agree.
They should all have it.
And we'll point them in the right direction.
Right, cool.
Comments, questions?
Just a quick question on the dedicated opioid money. Dave, how much do we have
what?
in there? Is it dedicated funds?
Probably about 50,000 right now. One thing that Mark's been working with the AG's office is a lot of the settlements are multi-year payments.
Yes.
So we're trying to get a better understanding of the size of those annual payments for how long they extend to. But right now we have about $50,000. And it's a separate fund the council established, I think, over a year ago.
So it's dedicated funds to be used for opioid particular items for police and fire.
Right.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that we're doing what's best with that money. Not that this wouldn't be the best investment. I just think of like COVID hits and everyone went and all the schools invested in those filters that are in the classrooms that no one is plugging in currently that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And, we have a limited supply of money. Before we spend money on Narcan, I want to make sure we're reaching out to all the groups, the different groups, and, getting our best bang for buck. You know that.
Well, the council is the agent to expend for that fund. So before you spend any money,
I don't know what's
going to come before the council.
Yeah.
Right.
I just have one more comment, if you don't mind. So one of the things we're doing at the county for the sheriff's department, we're going to be purchasing, we have the same deal with the opioid money. We get a piece of all the action, and then same exact thing. We're looking at a piece of equipment, I think it's expensive though, where the sheriff's department does not have to open any bags. They can actually identify what's in there without touching it. And I thought it was a kind of a good idea from the safety point. Because if you're touching fentanyl, you know that you could get,
Well, there have been plenty of documented cases of accidental exposure by two first responders from interaction
yeah.
with fentanyl. So that's
Something we maybe want to look at down the road when we get more money in.
Mr. Chair. Yep. I move to adopt resolution number 2023-010 to accept a gift from the South Central Public Health Network, whereas RSA 31:95E authorizes the town council to accept gifts other than money to be used for any public purpose. And whereas the South Central Public Health Network provides resources to safeguard the public health, and whereas the opioid epidemic has impacted the greater Derry area and resources are now available to help mitigate this public health crisis. And whereas the town may receive an initial gift of 25 Narcan outreach bags in a locked box, which is to be placed in the Derry Municipal Center. Now therefore be it resolved in council, the town administrator is hereby authorized to accept a gift of personal property at a value of $450 from South Central Public Health Network for public health resources to combat the opioid epidemic. Further, the town administrator is authorized to accept future gifts of this nature up to cumulative value of $5,000. This resolution take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Foot, seconded by Councilor Katsoukaris. Councilor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foot?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Grateful for the gift, and hopefully we can get more Narcan in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, councilors.
Last item, 23-13, Resolution 2023-011, 011, to execute the letter of intent to purchase conservation land. Presenting is Dave Karen.
Okay, the Conservation Commission has looked at a piece of land on English Range Road. It is about 51 acres. It recently passed from the previous owner to a person who intends upon developing. It appears to be about 8 acres of that facility. And the CONSCOM's been negotiating for the purchase of the balance of that land to place in a conservation easement. Now, typically what would happen is the Conservation Commission would have a public hearing, and then they approach the council. They would sign the letter of intent themselves, have a public hearing, go through the appraisal process, and then recommend to the council to purchase the land using conservation funds. Since there is envisioned to be a carve-out on this property for location of some future water facilities there, it is recommended that the town contribute $100,000 towards the purchase of the conservation property. So the purchase price is anticipated to be $494,000 for 42.7 acres. The property must still appraise at a minimum for the purchase price. The council will be requested to appropriate $100,000 in unallocated fund balance. The Conservation Commission will go within its restricted fund balance for the balance of it. There will be a title search, a Phase 1 environmental and a survey, and any other site assessments as the buyer of the Conservation Commission deems prudent. However, I need council authority to sign the letter of intent for the potential expenditure of $100,000. And if all these conditions are met, then we'll revert back to the customary process whereby the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing, then they will go to the council and ask for permission from the governing body to purchase the land. The council will also need to go through the supplemental appropriation process for the $100,000 from UFB. And currently we have funds in fund balance, which is in excess of our current minimum retainage per current council policy.
Questions? Go ahead.
So when will we do the supplemental appropriation?
Only when those conditions are met, whereby the property appraises out. The Conservation Commission's does a title search, they do a survey, and they do a Phase 1 environmental assessment.
So we can't do it now with conditions, and my only concern is let me rephrase. When do you think we'll be doing this? Before March?
March of this year?
Yeah.
I would anticipate no.
No?
No. Because I think the Conservation Commission wants to do a Phase 1 environmental on the
All right,
property.
because I have a concern because 2 seats are up, so 2 new councils will sit. So there's a potential that we could be going through the motions here and potentially do a supplemental appropriation that doesn't pass.
Well, seeing as I'm one of those counselors, it reminds me of, I know that's not your intent, but it reminds me of when we were going through the whole Supreme Court nomination. You know, I'm still a counselor till the day I'm not, and I'm still, people are still expecting me to go through the motions and do my job, and I'm ready to vote.
And I fully understand your concerns, Brian. Unfortunately, I think that's just part of this process. You know, I think whoever winds up filling, you know, these seats, you know, I think they would have to look at the fact that a previous council signed a letter of intent, and, you know, that was that council's way of approaching things. If they don't want to live up to that obligation that is signed by the town council, you know, you got to remember the town council is a body, and, you know, if the town council, you know, racks up $10,000 on a credit card debt, you know, it's kind of like, you know, what's going on the national scene. Like, you know, okay, we can either pay that debt or we can not pay that debt. If we don't pay that debt, it's kind of a problem. And if you know, and again, I fully understand your concerns. I just don't see a way around it. I mean, again, this is a letter of intent. It's not a P&S. We're not at that point.
My issue is this, and I'll kind of refresh some memories. This is kind of bringing up 2015 all over again.
I know. No, that's a very valid possibility.
And one of the councilors I'm talking to, where things changed in a heartbeat, and was kind of surprising because we.
And that was a council that did not live up to the agreements of prior councils.
And we lost, and we're still there.
Yeah, no, it's just, you know, this is.
All right.
And to that point, people get out and vote in March. You know, I mean, that's what it's about. You can vote for people that, you know, will uphold, you know, obligations, or you can vote for people that just want to do their own thing and, you know, support their own causes and whatever else. You know, elections have consequences. And as we just went through this back in 2015, I would hope people will have a good memory.
I mean, just from my standpoint, I think this is like a perfect opportunity. I mean, it's just, it's presents to the town, it's a great deal for the town.
Right. And
I just don't want to see it go the other way because you're doing a supplemental and you don't have the full 5 votes. That's all. But anyway,
I hear it. I was just saying that, you know, if I don't vote on this, then what else should I not vote on? It sets a bad precedent.
Right.
But I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah.
well, hold on a second, just so I understand what you're saying. We're just voting to allow to go into to sign a letter of intent. It's not the supplemental appropriation. As I asked, that's probably going to happen after the election.
Right.
You may be here, you may not be here, who knows? But that's the chance we're going to take.
Well, and I think the important thing to remember on that, Brian, is, you know, I mean, that the pros and cons of that will be presented to that council at that time. My sense is that, again, assuming everything pans out, conservation will move forward with this purchase. Okay? Whether or not, you know, now obviously if they move forward with the purchase without any contribution from the town itself, then, you know, they're probably not going to be too interested on anybody putting any water facilities on there. And, you know, they could structure the easement to, you know, basically say that. So again, that's going to be the decision for the supplemental appropriation for that council sitting at that time, you know? And again, I believe we all, don't think I'm talking out of school here, we all sat in non-public and said, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, my question again was, could we take the vote subject to, do it now for the supplemental, but I don't think we can.
Oh, no, you certainly can. It's a two-meeting process because there's a public hearing involved, so.
I mean, we're the ones discussing it. If we can do it with subjects, I think we should move forward with it, but just my opinion.
Would we have to come back with a separate motion at the next meeting, Dave?
What happens is if the council directs me to do that, we will put it on consent for February 7th and have a public hearing and appropriation on February 21st.
And once again, if for any reason the deal was to fall apart, appraisals, this, that, the other thing, you know, if making that supplemental appropriation, like any other supplemental appropriation, if it doesn't get expended.
Falls to the wayside.
It falls back into.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, good point, Brian. I'd like to see that happen, if
Yeah.
that's possible.
Yeah.
So now what do we do?
Yeah.
So we can move to table this, right?
Well, you should still sign the letter of intent, and if the council wants to give me direction to place supplemental on the consent for February 7th, we'll make sure that happens.
Well, we'll give you direction in council comments, and let's move the question.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt resolution number 2023-011, excuse me, to authorize a letter of intent to purchase land on English Range Road for conservation purposes. Whereas Section 5.1 of the town charter designates the town council as the governing and legislative body of the town, and as such is empowered to purchase real property for the benefit of the town and to appropriate funds for such purposes. And whereas the Conservation Commission has expressed interest in purchasing land for conservation purposes, and whereas the town council envisions a contribution of $100,000 toward acquisition of the parcel, and whereas numerous conditions of the sale must be met prior to closing, including a public hearing conducted by the town council on a supplemental appropriation to raise $100,000 from unassigned fund balance towards the purchase. Now therefore be it resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to sign a letter of intent to acquire 42.7 acres from the F. Donald Ball Irrevocable Trust on behalf of the town of Derry and the Derry Conservation Commission. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilor Weatherby, seconded by Councilor Foote. Any more discussion? On the motion, Councilor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris?
Yeah.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Weatherby?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Councilor comments and/or liaison reports.
No. Not good, George.
Councilor Flood? How'd Pizza Stall go?
It was a great turnout. I want to thank everyone who came. It was our biggest event to date. We filled the Tupelo Music Hall, and it was a great show. Everybody had a good time. We raised, we spread the message and raised some good money that we have to good work with. Thank everybody and anyone who heard me on here who showed up. Cool.
Good.
And we also awarded our first ever scholarship to Woodward, Camp Woodward, which is one of the world-renowned skateboard camps. So we picked a lucky winner. We announced them there. Sage, his last name escapes me. Awesome kid, awesome family. He was super pumped to be chosen. And yeah, it's more good stuff that the Flood Foundation is doing. So really cool.
Yeah,
Good job.
It was a good idea on your part.
What else? Anything else?
No.
Once we had to hold this hand.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn by Councilor Katsoukaris.
Second.
Second by Councilor Cherichello. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Have a good night.